Warning! Kinda Murdery contains adult themes, explicit language, and descriptions of violence. It is not suitable for anyone, and we recommend you stop listening now.
I do find that familiarizing yourself with something that is disturbing can actually take some of the wind out of it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Kinda Murdery, a true crime podcast that's mostly about murder, and always about the strange and compelling stories that arise when the path less traveled twists to darkness, and those who walk its shadows surrender to violence and moral corruption. We have a perilous journey ahead, so thank you for lending me your courage and good company. I'm Zevon Odelberg, and this is Kinda Murdery, coming to you on spring break with my family from my Uncle Bruce's house in Kirkwood, California, where I currently have my mobile podcast studio set up. And by mobile podcast studio, I mean a Yeti Blue Nano mic plugged into my laptop and duct taped to its stand. That's right, no technological expense is spared here on Kinda Murdery. Now I have to tell you a little bit about what I'm looking at. Right now, I am staring out the window at a 25-foot wall of snow that rises all the way to the roof of my uncle's house. In more tales of this 100-year winter, I can tell you that my uncle has lived here in Kirkwood for 30 years, and this is by far the most snow he's ever seen. Usually, you have to climb up the steps to get to his front door. This year, you have to climb down snow steps into a snow tunnel and make sure not to hit your head on the roof overhang when you do it. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. I'd like to give a quick shout out to listener Eugene Kroll from Baltimore, Maryland, who I had a remarkable and remarkably moving conversation with earlier today. Look out for Eugene's story in the coming weeks. Alright, let's get down to business. You are here for part 2 of Wizards of Death with legendary Magic the Gathering artist Anson Maddocks. That's right, I said part 2, so if you haven't heard part 1 yet, go back and listen to it and then rejoin us. We'll save you a seat. If you've already heard part 1, you'll recall hearing the story of the murder of famed Russian mystic Rasputin. Today, we'll be covering the murders committed by another self-proclaimed Russian mystic, Gosha the Wizard, who murdered 3 Russian models in 2011 and 2012. Right now, though, I'm going to rewind just a bit and rejoin my conversation with Anson Maddocks. At this point, we're discussing Anson's childhood friend and another all-time great magic artist, Mark Tadine. Specifically, we're talking about the fact that Mark is so kind that some of his friends find it just a little bit suspicious. Alright, get ready as Anson and I uncover what truths we can and solve what mysteries we may. Kinda Murdery's Wizards of Death with Anson Maddocks, Part 2, Gosha the Wizard, starts now.
He's a super nice guy. He's extremely polite, and some of our friends have made up jokes about him keeping frozen heads in his basement in a freezer, which I don't think is true.
So he's so kind it's almost suspicious, like
exactly.
Mr. Rogers or something.
Exactly, like who would make the best serial killer, right?
Yeah, that's right. So since your kind of murderiness is on the surface, that actually makes you less threatening. You know, we can see it. But with Mark, you're saying, I don't know about that guy. He might be into some weird shit. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, I think it might. My mother raised me to not watch Mr. Rogers because she was afraid that I would trust people who were
in cardigans. She didn't want you to trust people in cardigans.
Yeah, people who were overly seemingly trustworthy are potentially the worst. And I was a kid, and that was the reasoning that she gave me, and she would tell me examples of things that might happen to me, and I can't even say I'm here.
Yeah. I feel you. My dad had a version of that he told me once, and of course, this doesn't apply to anyone who may be an alcoholic, and I don't mean this insensitively, but his version of it was never trust a man who doesn't drink. And what he actually meant by that was not literally drink, but if you can't see a person's vices or occasional glimpses of a recognizable darkness, then maybe they're up to some really scary shit that they feel like they need to hide all the time. So a similar lesson as your mother was trying to impart, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So we're really suspicious about Mark Tadin's character, is what you're saying. I just want to put this in quotes, you know. I'm just
no, I honestly, I don't think he has a scary bone in his body. He's actually extremely funny, and I don't ever see him cutting loose and showing people how funny he is. But since I grew up with him, I had constant entertainment all the time.
That's awesome. Well, and of course, his work is just phenomenal. I mean,
it's amazing.
We all love it so much. So, what's your favorite Mark Tadin card? What's the one? Is there one where you're like, God, I wish I'd drawn that one, or I just love that one, or which card would it be?
There's a lot of them, but I remember sitting across from him in a cafe in like 92 or 93 probably, when he was doing Lord of the Pit. And I was thinking, graphic styles, that would save some time, and that looks really good. You know, maybe I should do some of that. I liked he doesn't use reference very often, and he just comes up with this stuff out of his head, which we both did, but
whole cloth, both of you guys right straight from the head, like Athena breaking out of Zeus. That's incredible.
Well, at the time, if you had time to go to the library and get some reference, or go to I went to the magazine store a lot, and I would kind of get magazines that had a bunch of different kinds of subjects. That would kind of help me get some inspiration. But we didn't have the ability to sit down and just type something in and have it shower us with images. Right. So if we're doing something and the deadline was extremely tight, we would do the best we could with what we knew.
You're right. No internet. Like, I remember 1994, my first friend got the internet, and it was dial-up, and we're high school freshmen. So what do? We'd come home after school, and his mom wouldn't be home from work yet, and we would go looking for porn. But when I say porn, what I mean is that we would find like a single still image, the equivalent of a picture in a Playboy, and I remember that it would take 20 or 30 minutes. It would be downloading by about the 16th of an inch. And like by the time we like made a snack and ate it and did some homework, we might get one picture of a naked lady. So
and it's like,
right. But
really
so
to
your point, even if you had tried to use the internet looking for reference images, it would have been incredibly inefficient. You'd see one picture after like 35 minutes of waiting. Right.
But the thing is that a lot of the card titles then were sort of with that built into it. So people, I think now you can put more abstract meaning into the cards, because people can, if they don't know what a word is, they can go and look it up easily. But then it was like, if you think about the titles of the first edition, they were all pretty straightforward, except for maybe it would include the name of a type of goblin or elf or something that, you understood that to be just like a tribe or a...
Right. Like a Lana world.
You'd figure it out later.
Yeah. So...
Right, exactly. I mean, Sengir Vampire, actually, when I did the art for it, the title was Vampire. So I was thinking, okay, I need to make this iconic.
And you
it has
sure
to be
did,
something that is...
By the way.
Right. So it didn't have any specific family or, anything as an association with something in particular. It was just a blood-sucking monster.
So where did you get the name Sengir?
They added that later. When they knew that things were going to be getting bigger, and they started thinking ahead, and they would give... Yeah, because they knew there might be more vampires, but I didn't know that.
So they picked a family.
So they would...
So to speak, like a...
Yeah. And so other vampires would come, and they would have a different prefix.
I still am now curious where where Sengir came from. Now I want to know that. Interesting.
I don't really know. I was thinking maybe it had something to do with like sanguine or like
yes, I bet that sounds right. All right, let's get back to some more murdery wizard stories, huh?
Yeah.
So this is the story of Gosha the Wizard. Now, something I like to think about, I was a theater major in college, theater and political science, and in both theater and political science, there's this sort of idea of, in theater it's called the genealogy of performance, and which means the different generations of sort of the same persona. Like you might say that Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was the first Clark Gable, and that George Clooney is this generation's Clark Gable, and that there will be the next generation there will be another Clooney. Or maybe it goes Paul Newman, Robert Redford, Brad Pitt. Now, I'm not interested in arguing the accuracy of this example. People could feel free to disagree with me, but this idea that the same sort of public persona or archetype reoccurs throughout history is something that I'm pretty darn fascinated by in both theater and in politics. And I think here with Gosha the Wizard, we're about to hear a story where Gosha may, in fact, in a sort of genealogy of performance sense, be our generation's Rasputin, although Rasputin perhaps doesn't deserve the comparison. But that's sort of the connection between these two stories. So, Gosha the Wizard, his name was Georgy Taramonovich Maderozin, was born in 1969 in Georgia, Russia, not Atlanta, Georgia. So he's a Russian serial killer, he's a magician, and a self-proclaimed spiritual healer. And what he would do is he would lure young aspiring models to his apartment, where he would drug them and cause them to overdose, killing 3 women and possibly a 4th between 2011 and 2012. Now, all 3 of his known victims had slim bodies, long legs, and blonde hair. And they all believed that Gosha the Wizard had the power to clean up their karmas and multiply their fortunes. Born in Tbilisi to an Armenian family, he moved to the European part of the Soviet Union, so essentially East Germany, Czechoslovakia sort of area, when he was 2 years old. And then following the USSR's collapse, he went on adventures exploring various countries in the post-Soviet era. In Belarus, he was convicted of theft and served a short prison sentence before moving back to Russia. Then, in the late 1990s, he joined a gang of robbers who broke into apartments, but they were eventually captured and imprisoned. Fortunately for Gosha, he was released under amnesty in the year 2000 in honor of the 55th anniversary of Victory Day. So, this guy who was already a petty criminal in multiple times and places got let out because Russia was celebrating the defeat of Nazi Germany in the year 2000, which seems like sort of a mercurial reason if you ask me, but hey, whatever works for you, I guess. But obviously letting him out to celebrate the defeat of Nazi Germany turned out to be a tragic decision.
Yeah.
For the next 7 years, he worked in a variety of jobs, including as a cook, a chauffeur, a salesman, and a logger. Then, in 2007, he made himself a profile on the popular Russian dating site Mamba.ru. There, Maderozin presented himself as a magician and a spiritual healer, a Rasputin, if you will. He was allegedly capable of curing ailments, healing bad karma, and this is when, in 2007, on the dating site Mamba.ru, he began referring to himself as Gosha, the magician. Man, even though he's an awful murderer, now I want to see a magic card called Gosha the Magician, preferably illustrated by Anson Maddocks.
It kind of reminds me of Dushka Dugoshka, which I think is what the Yugoslavians called Bugs Bunny.
Really? Say it again. Dushka.
Dushka Dugoshka. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Well, all I can say, that's interesting. All I can say is let's hope that the expanded universe doesn't extend to Looney Tunes, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
My God. Here's my new Planeswalker, Porky Pig. Anyway. Oh, right.
Wily.
Nah, I'd almost play a Wily, to be honest, but all right. Let's get back on track here. So Initially, his business as Gosha the magician, karma healer, and etc. was slow, but his strange rituals earned him regular clients. Using a combination of Wicca and Rasputin-influenced mysticism, he would take girls to an isolated monastery where he would light candles and sacrifice rams in order to cast spells of good fortune. Okay, so just a note to all the young people listening. If a man is going to take you alone to a monastery and then sacrifice a black ram in front of you for good luck, don't go. And if you do go, run. These days, there are pretty much no good magic rituals that involve sacrificing black rams. Maybe in ancient Greece there were, now not so much. That ought to be a major red flag. If you meet a guy on a dating app and he takes you to a isolated monastery to slit some sheep throats, don't go on a second date. That's just my advice, but
this might be a good time to promote veganism, Like if that happens in front of a vegan, they're probably not going to stick
there
around.
You go. So yeah, become a vegan so that you don't get murdered by the next Gosha the wizard. yeah, there you go. All right, so he would take him to the monastery, light candles, and sacrifice rams in order to cast spells of good fortune. Then in 2009, a high-class escort named Rima became his client. And she enjoyed Gosha the Wizard's services so much that she told her friends about him. His fame spread through word of mouth, and not long after, he amassed enough wealth to afford a 2-story house in a neighborhood in Korolyov, where he lived with his common-law wife and young daughter, and frequently went on vacations to various countries around the world. So basically, this guy was just using pop culture mysticism and sheep murder as an excuse for his gallivanting polyamory. That's what it sounds like to me. But so according to Gosha, among his clients, numbering around 40 or 50 women, there were some famous singers and numerous beauty pageant competitors between the ages of 18 and 50. As a rule of thumb, Gosha turned down all men applying for his services and only accepted women, most of whom were young, rich, and gullible, and would sometimes even sleep with him as part of his rituals. So, sounds like he was an itinerant cult leader, like a wandering cult leader, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I've never wonder if he has a book. His techniques, or it just doesn't sound like my MO.
This guy Mystery wrote a book called The Game about
his name is Mystery.
The Secret Society of Pickup Artists, and it was all of his rules for how to get women. I actually had a boss who gave me a copy of this book, which I never read because I just thought it was too gross. But he's the one who popularized and invented this idea of negging, which is be mean to the girl that you want so she feels insecure, so she wants your approval. And
so he never graduated from throwing rocks at girls
exactly.
On the playground.
His other things were things like peacocking, which is like make yourself bizarrely noticeable, like wear like a giant green and purple cat in the hat and like huge sunglasses and a ton of jewelry so that you stand out in a crowd. A bunch of absurd things where you basically treat women like dumb animals, and that supposedly makes them want to sleep with you. I'm off track here, but that was what when you said wrote a book, I suddenly thought of that guy.
I'm glad that disgusting murderers have those traits as well, so we can kind of get rid of them when we get rid of the killer.
There you go. Yeah, so we all can sort of see through the bullshit. Exactly. Yeah, no Mr. Rogers there. Yeah, exactly. All right. From the tattoos and muscular arms to the heavy jawline and intense look, no conscious person, upon studying Georg Matarosian's features, would want to share intimate secrets with him. I mean, he apparently looked like just as scary as he actually was. But apparently he did in fact attract a lot of beautiful women. And some of them wanted their health problems treated, others were looking for career improvement or rich husbands. Most of his quote-unquote patients stayed with Gosha for years and trusted every word he said. According to his website, Gosha charged $200 per visit. In one post he addressed Moscow's forlorn young women saying, "Dear ladies who feel lonely in soul and in bed, I am yours at any time. I welcome those who want to be happy. All the victims, young ladies, allegedly engaged in prostitution. They knew about Gosha's paranormal powers and are said to have visited him to cleanse their karma. So, from pagan to Orthodox times, including in Rasputin's time, right? Russians have long dabbled in various mystical rituals. They made pilgrimages to churches for blessed healing water or to old grandmothers for folksy spells. In fact, a few weeks ago, we did a story called The Witch of Vladimirovich about exactly this, a hedge witch who poisoned a whole bunch of people. She may, in fact, have been the world's most prolific serial killer, but it was common, especially around the turn of the century, for Russians to go to explicitly titled and, in fact, licensed by the state witches. Being a witch doctor was an actual officially recognized profession, and you had to pay the government for a license to do it. So the point here being that as wild as this all sounds, there's actually a really long, even ancient cultural tradition of believing in these sorts of mystics and in the efficacy of what they do, which adds a little bit of understanding to why this guy was so successful. People weren't just dumb. It's like this is something you do in Russia.
It's hard to argue with something your grandmother told you since you were a kid.
Right. That's what.
Like a lot of these beliefs are very persistent, and if every other person believes in it, then it makes it harder to get away from.
And that's also why it's so darn difficult to stamp out, intolerant or bigoted beliefs that we all may sort of know are well past their time and odious, but as you're alluding to, when generations of people espouse them, or when they're espoused by somebody you love deeply, even if that particular belief is wrong, it can be hard to condemn a person you love, which can make it difficult as well to pull yourself away from a belief that you may find distasteful, speaking generally.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to walk away from something when you're defending one of your loved ones, right? The things that they believe in, and somebody else is like bashing it. Right. You can be torn in that moment.
Right, and I think there's a fair amount of our culture war that can be part of that when you take a hard line and you say, anyone who's ever said or thought this is a terrible, horrible person. And then people think to themselves, well, I believe that this is terrible and horrible, but my grandfather was wonderful, and I see him as being from just another time. And if what you're requiring of me is to repudiate my love of my family, then I'm more likely to tell you to fuck off as opposed to update my beliefs to something more palatable. I think that's a real human thing. Yeah, so anyway, so here we go, back to it. Yeah, long history of this stuff in Russia. Whether it's fortune-telling mirrors or bringing back dead people from the grave, in modern Russia, the belief of the power of the wizard lives on. Every kiosk sells newspapers publishing long lists of advertisements for masters of magic who promise to fix a person's success in love, sexual life, or business. Masters of magic, huh? In the context of Magic the Gathering, although I play a lot of it myself, I don't think a master of magic would be the person I would necessarily go to first to fix my love or sexual life. Just gonna throw that out there. Oh boy.
I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm just kidding, ladies. You know I love you, in the words of Marshall Mathers. Okay, moving on. So, as an artist, do you have a sense of what it is or why it is that you are drawn creatively to the macabre, the visceral, the dark, whatever we want to call it, the Kinda Murdery, if you will? Do you know what it is about it that fascinates you?
It might be that it's safe for me to explore that. With media, just creatively, because it doesn't leave the surface, that I'm putting it on.
That makes sense.
And so it's easy to see like how far into that you can explore. And I do find that familiarizing yourself with something that is disturbing can actually take some of the wind out of it.
Interesting. Interesting.
There was a time that I was surprised in the bathroom by a spider. It was a huge spider. Mm-hmm. And I picked up a can of shaving cream and threw it at it. And it didn't make it. But I couldn't get to sleep.
Because you were like, this spider's going to be crawling up my leg in bed.
It's like, how many friends does it have? Yada, yada.
Right.
And so what I did was I went back to the bathroom and I collected the pieces of the spider and I glued it to an index card. I filled his crushed body with some acrylic medium and I went right to sleep.
Huh.
Something about the process of dealing with it, interacting with it, removed my, sort of the what if, and the what's behind you
That's
kind
so
of thing.
Interesting. So I think I hear you saying that it is directly therapeutic for you, that it's a way for you to face, harness, and overcome your fears or dark thoughts to some extent.
It was so obviously effective that I employ it in things later. I like things that really disturb me. I will just mentally face them and kind of run it over a few times, and it takes a lot of the power out of it.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. That makes a lot of sense to me. I also have to say, so when you threw the shaving cream at the spider, it sounds like you nailed it. So did you play baseball or anything? Because
I did. No, it was luck.
Or nerves of steel. I mean, I feel like if I'm terrified and I throw anything at a spider, which, although big, like you said, aren't that big in terms of as a target. So I'm impressed that you hit the sucker.
Well, it could have more to do with its size and how close it was to me.
Fair enough. I really like what you said about, darkness serving a therapeutic effect, because that's something that I feel like I have encountered doing this show as well, where even though I'm doing a true crime show, I am not traditionally in my life, I haven't been like a huge horror movie fan or death metal fan or something like that. Usually because I have an overactive imagination, I get nightmares and stuff. So I always kind of wondered, like, what is it that people love so much about really disturbing movies, or what is it that they love about this music that sometimes just sounds like a chainsaw running in front of your face or something. And what I've heard from people, and heard from people listening to the show as well, is that sometimes if you're a person who feels like there's a lot of darkness inside you, that dark things, whether it's art or music or movies or podcasts, can actually make you feel normal. There's like this, I kind of feel this way all the time, and I feel my otherness from other sort of stable, happy people, if you will. But when I consume this darker media, I feel like the darkness inside me is almost normalized, and I feel more at peace with myself. And so something that sounds really hectic to somebody else actually can generate peace in another person. And that really kind of was super interesting to me.
Yeah. If you're always looking at something happening, you're feeling apart from it. Mm-hmm. And I, regardless of the art that I do, I'm not, what do you call it? I don't have the madness of somebody that would be in my work,
Right.
I mean, I'm telling you that, so obviously that means right. I am, but
no, right. But yeah, I take your point, and like I said, I think it's so cool that you described it as a way to face and confront your own fear, because you hear sort of ad nauseum that the only way to move through something is to face it directly. We all need to confront our fears, etc. But obviously that can be a really difficult and frightening thing to do. And the fact that you've been able to use your art, which is obviously something that you love and are passionate and energized by, use your art as a way to confront fears, which is something that is so hard to do for most people. I mean, I think that's really inspiring and hopefully useful and helpful knowledge for others. It certainly is for me. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you know what, Anson? It's happened again. First I thought this was going to be a 1-episode conversation. Then I thought it would be a 2-episode conversation. And here we are again with just too much good stuff left to talk about and too much good Gosha the Wizard to fit into a single episode. And so, if you want to hear the finale of Gosha the Wizard and more from Anson Maddocks, please do tune in this Thursday, March 30th for Part 3 of Wizards of Death with Anson Maddocks, and this will be the thrilling conclusion of Gosha the Wizard. And if you happen to play old school Magic the Gathering, I hope to see you next weekend at the Risk. Shout out to Chris Pepin and Denny Griffith for all they do for the community. I'm Zevon Odelberg, and this has been Kinda Murdery.